Hey everybody, Eric Speck here, Director of Pharmacy Peer Support at RPH Ally. Coming at you today, I've been thinking about the reason why pharmacists find themselves in trouble with their licensing board. You know, it's something that we don't hear about too much, but when you actually start looking into it, you could find cases everywhere where pharmacists are doing things they're not supposed to be doing and having administrative actions served against them because of what they did. And you know, pharmacists were very smart people. You know, we know the laws, we know the regulations, we know the difference between right and wrong. So it got me thinking to look into it deeper, think about it more. You know, well, why do these things happen when obviously we don't want them to happen? They shouldn't happen. So I'm going to tell you more about that right after this. All right. So, what are some of the things I'm talking about here? Like I said, I've been diving in a little bit deeper to see, you know, what kind of things are going out there, things that we don't hear about. You know, when these things happen, it's not like somebody gets on social media and starts telling everybody about it. And at the same time, it's not something that I think other people in the pharmacy profession really don't want to talk about. So we just don't talk about it, hide it, keep it a secret, whatever. And nobody really hears about it. So just yesterday, I spent a little bit of time seeing what type of accusations and administrative actions were taken against pharmacists. And there's a lot. Like I said, you can find these everywhere. There's one pharmacist recently she owned a pharmacy and she was dispensing narcotics to patients without prescriptions. I have no idea why she was doing this, but basically people would come in, ask for something, she would sell it to them, just like a drug dealer. Obviously, we know better. We shouldn't do those things. I'm going to go over a few of these and kind of tell you a couple of things in common, I think, about what's going on with each of these pharmacists and what their thinking was or what their thinking wasn't when they were doing this. A pharmacist was stealing Adderall for his personal use. Okay, I think we can all see how that can happen. It's probably not super crazy and out of the realm of things that's been done before by pharmacists. Healthcare fraud, pharmacist, illegal billing of prescriptions. I don't know the details. I don't know if it was billing brands, dispensing generics, billing for medications that weren't actually dispensed, but it's a felony, a federal felony, and it resulted in major fines and loss of pharmacist license. Improper dispensing of controlled medications. A pharmacist who was not, I don't want to say not paying attention, but he was not following the standard of practice. So essentially, he was filling very high quantities of scheduled medications. He was giving early refills on these medications. He was filling prescriptions exclusively for potent narcotics from some physicians, which, you know, if you're a pain management physician, you're going to be prescribing a lot of these. But the Board of Pharmacy looked at this and they said, no, this is, you know, some red flags the pharmacist should have noticed. Basically, this pharmacist was filling narcotics left and right at higher rates than surrounding pharmacists, higher rates than the standard and average. And the board felt he was at fault for that, and he ended up receiving 5 years of probation. Pharmacist received a DUI. He's actually a pharmacy intern, got a DUI and had difficulty getting his license, ended up receiving a probationary license, but still got in trouble with the board. And some of the other things, all within the realm related to what I described earlier. And I don't need to go into any more. But when you look at all of these, in every case, the pharmacists knew better. I imagine they did. And if they didn't know better, they should have known better. Yet they decided to do it anyway. So it's essentially, when they're about to make this decision, whether it's drinking and driving, whether it's billing for a medication you didn't dispense, or filling really high amounts of controlled substances, you know, improper dispensing of those medications. I boil it down to two things. I think number one, the first thing is that these pharmacists, likely they know it's wrong, but I'm going to say they don't think it's that big of a deal, and they don't think the consequences are as bad as they are. And looking at the consequences part, most pharmacists have never been in trouble with the law. You know, that's probably why they're still practicing as a pharmacist. So they don't really know what it's like to have an accusation served against you by the Board of Pharmacy, how many hoops you have to jump through and how challenging that is. So maybe they know that some consequences may exist, but they don't think it's that big of a deal. It's not going to impact them very much, when the truth is it impacts them greatly, and it impacts them not only in their professional lives, but in their personal lives. Really, their whole livelihoods in jeopardy if they're no longer allowed to work as a pharmacist and provide an income because they got in trouble and aren't allowed to practice their license anymore. And so they don't think it's that big of a deal if they get in trouble. The second thing is, and it's something that I thought, it's something that everybody who I've talked to thought, who's been in a situation similar to this, is it's not going to happen to me. You know, whatever the rationalization is, I'm too smart, I'm too good for that, I'm better, I'm different. They minimize the chance that it's going to happen to them to the extent that they'll go ahead and make this unethical decision anyways, right? So you're looking at two things. One, consequences aren't that bad if I get caught. And number two, I'm not going to get caught. So what do I have to worry about? And I think that's true for 100% of these pharmacists who I described here and the thousands of other ones that it's happened to over the years. And I just want to put that warning out there for all pharmacists, that if you're doing any one of these two things, or both of them, or if you are thinking about doing it in the future for whatever reason, remember these two things. It is not worth it. The consequences are severe. It affects your whole life. I mean, I don't want to give a bunch of examples, but you can lose your house, you can lose your marriage, you lose your car. How are you going to put food on the table? Like literally serious problems that are going to arise if you decide to make these decisions and you get in trouble with the Board of Pharmacy. So don't be thinking that it's just a slap on the wrist. You're going to be able to talk your way out of it or get a lawyer and, you'll be fine. One of these pharmacists is serving 7 years in federal prison. And I bet you if she knew that she could be spending 7 years in federal prison because of something that really wasn't that big of a deal to her, I imagine, right? A lot of you watching this probably think, well, that is a huge deal. Like you cannot dispense a narcotic or controlled medication without a prescription. But what I think this pharmacist was thinking, well, I've known these people, or it's not that much, it's not that big of a deal. I own the pharmacy. Who cares? Or the second part is, well, nobody's ever going to find out, right? Well, now she's spending 7 years in prison. Now, I couldn't imagine spending 7 years in prison, going from being a successful pharmacist, and this pharmacist was a pharmacy owner. She was in the community for, I want to say, close to 30 years as an independent pharmacist, helping, tons and tons of people with their prescription needs, with their health needs, providing a great service in the community. So I'm sure she did a lot of great things over those 30 years. And for whatever reason, she thought it would be okay, or maybe she knew it wasn't okay, but she thought she can get away for it, whatever her reasoning was, to go ahead and dispense medications without a prescription. I bet you now she's sitting there really regretting she did that and wish she could go back in time and change her decision. But that's the thing, you can't go back in time and change your decision when these consequences come down on you. There's a lot of regret there, a lot of shame, and a lot of guilt. So if you can avoid that, absolutely do it. And the truth is, it's not if you can avoid it, it's you definitely can avoid it. So just avoid it, right? So the next time you're faced with a decision, like, I know this is wrong, but I may go ahead and do it anyways, just stop right there. Don't do it. The consequences are worse than you could ever imagine. And the likelihood of you getting caught is much greater than you think, than you want it to be. So pharmacists out there, pharmacy techs, everybody in the pharmacy profession, actually everybody in healthcare in general, all you licensed healthcare professionals, the reason I put out videos like this is I don't want to see these things happen to you. You're good people, you're smart people, you've all worked very, very hard to get where you're at. And if you make just one wrong choice, it could all be taken away from you. And that's just not right. So I want you to have a successful career. I want you to have a good life. I want you to be happy and avoid any of this mess that these other pharmacists got into, type of mess that I got into. And when I was talking about these examples here, my example was similar, what happened to me. And I also thought those two things. The consequences aren't that bad, and it'll never happen to me. And I think every single person who this happens to had those same two things going on in their head. So anyways, guys, thank you for watching. Be safe, be careful, be smart out there. If I could answer any questions for you, you know where to find me, rphally.com. Join the peer support channel, and I'll talk to you guys later.